The moment the security guard escorted me out of the building with my cardboard box of personal items, the realization hit me like a freight train. I, Destiny Harper, had just been fired for the simple act of holding Rachel's hand in public at the annual company picnic. "This is a family-friendly company," my boss had said with a smirk, "and we can't have that kind of influence on the team." As I stood on the sidewalk in downtown Chicago, the wind whipping through my hair, tears stung my eyes not just from the humiliation but from the fear of what this would mean for my life, my relationship, and the family that had always expected me to be the perfect straight daughter climbing the corporate ladder. I called Rachel immediately, my voice shaking as I recounted the events. "They fired me, Rach. Just like that. Because of us." Rachel's voice was steady on the other end. The one anchor in my storm. "We'll get through this, Destiny. You're stronger than them. Come home, we'll figure it out together." But as I hung up, the weight of our secret no longer secret pressed down. My parents in their suburban home would find out soon enough through the grapevine, and their conservative views on that lifestyle would turn this into a family war. By the time I reached our small apartment in Lincoln Park, Rachel was waiting with open arms. Her embrace was warm, her kiss soft and reassuring, reminding me why we'd risked it all after 2 years of hiding. But inside, the conflict raged. Was it worth it? The promotion I was up for at Apex Marketing, the 6-figure salary, the stability I'd worked 12-hour days to earn, all gone because I chose love over hiding. That night, as we lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying the stares from colleagues, the whispers in the break room, the betrayal of the HR rep who once called me a rising star. The price was immediate. No severance beyond the legal minimum, a vague reference that would scream red flags, and the door to my industry slamming shut in ways I hadn't anticipated. The next morning brought the first wave of consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "We heard what happened. Call us." Her voice when I did was laced with disappointment that cut deeper than any termination letter. "Destiny, how could you embarrass the family like this? Your father is furious. We raised you to succeed, not to throw it away on. Whatever this is." I tried to explain, my words tumbling out in defense of the woman I loved, but the line went silent except for my father's heavy sigh in the background. "This isn't who we are," he said finally. "Fix it or don't come home." Rachel sat beside me, squeezing my hand, but I saw the worry in her eyes. She taught 3rd grade at a public school. Her job was safe, but our shared future suddenly felt precarious. The societal judgment wasn't abstract anymore. It was in the way the barista at our corner cafe avoided eye contact the next day, in the awkward pause when our neighbor asked why I was home midday. Weeks blurred into a grind of job applications. Every interview started strong until the background check or a loose connection from Apex revealed the reason for departure. Not a cultural fit, recruiters would say politely, but I knew the code. Prejudice wore a suit in Chicago's corporate world, and my resume now carried an invisible scarlet letter. Rachel supported me with quiet strength, cooking meals I barely ate, reminding me daily that our love was the one thing they couldn't take. Yet the inner turmoil grew. Had I been selfish? Rachel had dreams too. A house, maybe kids someday, and my firing dragged her into uncertainty. I questioned every choice that led to that picnic kiss, the one moment of defiance after years of stolen glances and late-night whispers. The cost was mounting. Sleepless nights, mounting bills, and the slow erosion of the confidence that once defined me. By the end of the first month, I'd burned through my savings on rent and groceries. Rachel picked up extra tutoring shifts, but the strain showed in the way she fell silent during dinners. One evening, after another rejected application, I broke down in our tiny living room. "Maybe I should have stayed hidden," I whispered. Rachel pulled me close, her voice firm. "No. You deserve to live openly. We'll build something new." Her words planted a seed, but doubt lingered. The family pressure intensified when my sister called, echoing our parents. "Think of the holidays. Think of us." The moral dilemma hit hard. Was my happiness worth fracturing the family that shaped me? As I lay awake that night, the city lights filtering through the blinds, I knew this firing wasn't just a job loss. It was the spark that would force me to choose between the life I was raised for and the one I truly wanted. But little did I know, this was just the beginning of a 3-year journey that would turn the tables in ways I could never have imagined. With that first betrayal behind me, I threw myself even deeper into building what would become my empire, but the path was paved with fresh obstacles that tested every ounce of my resolve. The freelance gigs started small: social media campaigns for local startups, logo redesigns for coffee shops, but each one chipped away at the shame of being fired. Rachel cheered every win, yet I saw the toll on her. "You're always working," she said one night after I missed our anniversary dinner because a client deadline loomed. I apologized, promising balance, but inside I knew the trade-off. Time with her versus the drive to prove Apex wrong. The societal whispers followed me online too. A former co-worker liked a post mocking diversity hires, and I blocked them, but the sting remained. My parents' silence stretched into months. When I finally visited for my niece's birthday, the tension was thick. My mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. "People are talking, Destiny. Your cousin asked if you're, you know." I stood my ground, introducing Rachel as my partner for the first time, but the room went cold. My father barely spoke, and the drive home was silent until Rachel squeezed my knee. "They'll come around," she said, but I wasn't sure. The family pressure became a constant voice in my head, questioning if my choices were destroying generations of expectations. Meanwhile, my small consulting firm, Harper Strategies, gained traction. I landed a contract with a tech nonprofit that valued authenticity, and suddenly clients were seeking me out because of the very thing that got me fired: my perspective as an out lesbian woman in a male-dominated field. But success invited new betrayals. An old Apex colleague, Mike, reached out pretending support. "Hey, heard you're killing it. Let's grab coffee." Over lattes he pumped me for client lists, then leaked my strategies to his team. When I confronted him in a crowded cafe, my voice rose above the chatter. "You pretended to be my friend while I was packing my desk, and now this?" He shrugged. "Business, Destiny. You should have played the game." The confrontation left me shaking, forcing me to face my own growing ruthlessness. Was I becoming the cutthroat I hated? Rachel listened that night as I paced our apartment. "Don't let them turn you bitter," she warned, but the fire inside me was already lit. I doubled down, networking at queer business events, pitching with raw honesty about overcoming prejudice. By the end of year one, Harper Strategies had 3 employees and a steady revenue stream. We moved to a better apartment, but the moral cost weighed heavy. Rachel's family invited us for Thanksgiving, yet her brother made passive comments about lifestyle choices, and I bit my tongue for her sake. The inner conflict peaked when a major client offered double pay if I downplayed my relationship in public materials. I refused, but the decision cost us the deal and 2 weeks of arguments with Rachel. "I support you," she said through tears, "but sometimes I wonder if this fight is worth losing us." Those words haunted me. The price of my awakening was clear: financial stability at the expense of the woman I loved most. Yet I pushed forward, hiring my first full-time assistant and expanding into digital campaigns. Chicago's corporate scene still whispered my name with disdain, but slowly, that disdain turned to curiosity. Little did they know the girl they discarded was building something unstoppable. The second year brought bigger risks and deeper wounds, but I was no longer the woman walking out with a cardboard box. I was the one rewriting the rules. The second year brought bigger risks and deeper wounds, but I was no longer the woman walking out with a cardboard box. I was the one rewriting the rules, even as new confrontations threatened to unravel everything I had rebuilt. Harper Strategies landed its first 7-figure contract with a national health brand seeking authentic voices. I poured everything into the campaign, working 18-hour days while Rachel covered our home life alone. "I'm proud of you," she said during a rare weekend hike along Lake Michigan, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. The trade-off was eating at us both. Our relationship, once effortless, now survived on hurried texts and make-up kisses after fights about missed plans. Family pressure escalated when my mother showed up unannounced at our door. "Your father had a heart scare," she said, eyes pleading. "Come home for Christmas. Alone." The implication stung: hide Rachel or lose them. I refused, but the guilt followed me into every board meeting. A moral dilemma that whispered I was choosing ambition over blood. Societal prejudice resurfaced in subtle ways. A potential investor at a pitch event recognized my name from Apex rumors and pulled out, citing reputational risk. I confronted him in the hallway, voice steady despite the pounding heart. My reputation built this company from nothing after your industry blacklisted me. He walked away, but the encounter fueled my drive. Meanwhile, Rachel faced her own battles at school. A parent complained about exposure after seeing us at a community event. She came home exhausted, questioning if our openness was costing her students. Maybe we tone it down, she suggested once, and the words broke something in me. Was I dragging her down? The inner conflict raged during sleepless nights, weighing love against the empire I was forging. Then came the turning point that nearly shattered us. I discovered one of my early employees, a trusted friend from freelance days, had been feeding client intel back to Apex in exchange for a promotion there. The betrayal hit like the firing all over again. I fired her in a tense office meeting, my voice cold as I listed the evidence. You knew what they did to me, I said. How could you? She cried, claiming desperation. But the damage was done. Lost contracts eroded trust. Rachel held me that night as I questioned everything. Is revenge worth becoming someone I don't recognize? She asked softly. Her words forced a reckoning. I scaled back the aggression, focusing instead on ethical growth. Partnering with LGBTQ nonprofits, mentoring young queer professionals. Business boomed anyway, hitting 8 figures by year's end. We celebrated with a quiet dinner, Rachel's hand in mine across the table, but the distance lingered. Family cracks widened when my sister reached out privately. Mom's sick, Destiny. She won't say it, but she misses you. I visited alone, enduring lectures on natural order, yet left with a fragile truce. The societal and moral pressures had carved deep scars, but they also forged clarity. I realized the price of my rise wasn't just lost relationships, it was the constant choice between softness and steel. As year 2 closed, Harper Strategies prepared for its biggest move yet. Acquiring a struggling rival. Rachel stood by me, but I saw the question in her eyes. How much more would this cost us? The 3rd year would answer that, with confrontations that would either break us or make me unstoppable. The 3rd year would answer that, with confrontations that would either break us or make me unstoppable. As Harper Strategies circled its former predator, like a shark sensing blood. The rival firm was none other than a division of Apex, weakened by bad leadership and market shifts. I orchestrated the acquisition quietly, pouring every resource into due diligence while keeping Rachel in the loop during late-night strategy sessions. This is closure, I told her, but she saw the obsession. Or revenge, she countered one evening, her voice tight. I love you, but I won't watch you lose yourself. The moral dilemma peaked there. Forgive the past or weaponize it. I chose the latter, but the trade-off was immediate. Rachel pulled back emotionally, citing exhaustion from her own battles at school where prejudice lingered. Family intervention came at the worst moment. My father called during a critical negotiation week. Your mother is in the hospital. Come as family destiny. Leave that woman out of it. The ultimatum forced a choice. I flew home alone, sitting at her bedside as she whispered regrets mixed with judgment. We just want you happy, she said, but the subtext was clear. Happy on their terms. Returning to Chicago, I found Rachel packing a bag for a weekend with friends. I need space, she admitted. Your fight is consuming us. The confrontation in our living room was raw, tears, raised voices, accusations of neglect. I begged her to stay, promising balance after the deal, but inside I wondered if ambition had already cost me the one person who never betrayed me. Societal eyes watched too. Tabloid business blogs speculated on the fired lesbian taking down her old firm, turning my story into public drama. Yet the acquisition closed. Harper Strategies absorbed the Apex division. And suddenly I held the keys to the building that once ejected me. My first act as new leadership was subtle, rebranding without fanfare, but the internal memos rippled through old staff. Former colleagues who had whispered during my exit now emailed cautiously, testing waters. One, my old boss's assistant, called begging for a meeting. We didn't know it would go this far, she said. I listened without emotion, the inner awakening stirring. Power felt hollow without Rachel's smile. I met Rachel at our favorite cafe after the signing, sliding her a key to a new house I'd bought in secret. For us, I said. No more fighting alone. She cried, but the embrace was tentative. The family pressure didn't ease. My parents sent a card congratulating the business success, while ignoring Rachel's name. Confrontations escalated as integration began. An old Apex executive cornered me in the elevator during the first joint meeting. "You think this makes you better?" he sneered. I met his gaze. "It makes me free." The exchange left me shaken, questioning if victory tasted like justice or just mirrored their prejudice. Rachel and I rebuilt slowly, date nights, honest talks about sacrifices, but the strain showed in her tired eyes. As the year progressed, I faced the ultimate moral crossroad. Demote the very bosses who fired me or offer them roles under my rules. The decision would define me. With the company now mine, the final chapter loomed, where every choice's price would come due in a boardroom that once broke me. With the company now mine, the final chapter loomed, where every choice's price would come due in a boardroom that once broke me. And the confrontations turned personal in ways I hadn't prepared for. I chose mercy on paper, retaining key Apex executives under strict oversight, but the reality was a slow dismantling of their old culture. In the first all-hands meeting, I stood at the podium where my termination had been announced 3 years earlier. "We value authenticity here now," I said, my voice steady as former colleagues shifted uncomfortably. Whispers followed me through hallways. "She hasn't changed." But I had. The woman who once cried on the sidewalk now commanded respect laced with fear. Rachel's support wavered under the spotlight. Media picked up the story: lesbian executive buys out former employer. And suddenly our relationship was dissected online. Her school faced parent complaints again, forcing her to take a leave. "This is your dream," she told me during a heated argument in our new kitchen, "but it's costing mine." The betrayal I feared wasn't from strangers, but from the exhaustion in her voice. I offered to step back, sell parts of the company, but she shook her head. "No. Just don't become them." Family pressure crested when my parents arrived uninvited for a celebration dinner. My father pulled me aside. "You've won. Now fix the rest, come home without her." I refused, watching their car leave in silence, the moral weight crushing. Success had isolated me from blood but bonded me to Rachel in defiance. The biggest confrontation came in the executive boardroom. My former boss, the man who signed my termination, sat across the table during restructuring talks. "Destiny," he began, voice dripping false warmth. "We underestimated you." I slid the new contract across, demoting him without severance. "You underestimated us," I corrected, nodding toward a photo of Rachel on my desk. He couldn't meet my eyes. The room fell silent as old allies squirmed, the air thick with the consequences of their prejudice. Yet victory felt Pyrrhic. That night Rachel waited up, her expression guarded. "Did it feel good?" she asked. I admitted it did, but the admission widened the crack between us. She spoke of needing time, of therapy for the accumulated wounds, my absences, family rejection, public scrutiny. The inner awakening hit hardest then. Power had healed the firing but wounded the love that survived it. I implemented changes quietly, inclusive policies, queer mentorship programs, proving the company could evolve. Former colleagues who once avoided me now sought advice, their apologies awkward and self-serving. One, a woman who'd gossiped during my exit, broke down in my office. I was scared for my own job. I offered her a second chance, recognizing my own past fear. But Rachel's distance grew. She moved some things to her sister's place for space. The trade-off crystallized. I had the CEO title, the corner office overlooking Lake Michigan, but the woman who held my hand through the darkest day was slipping away. As integration wrapped, I prepared for the final reckoning, not with Apex, but with myself and the choices that defined my rise. The boardroom wasn't the end. It was the mirror forcing me to see the full price paid. The boardroom wasn't the end. It was the mirror forcing me to see the full price paid. And as the last integration settled, the true confrontation arrived in the quiet of our home rather than any corporate tower. I found Rachel packing the last of her clothes one rainy Chicago evening. The city lights blurring through windows we'd once dreamed over together. "I can't watch you win if it means losing us," she said, tears steady. "You became the CEO they feared. but the destiny I fell in love with is buried under revenge. Her words landed like the termination letter 3 years earlier, sharp, final. I begged, promising change, citing the inclusive policies I'd fought for, the family truce I'd forced. But she shook her head. You fought for justice, but you forgot mercy for us. The moral dilemma that had simmered for years boiled over. Had every sacrifice, the family estrangement, the sleepless nights, the betrayals endured and delivered, been worth the empire if it cost the one person who never wavered? I let her go that night, standing alone in the empty space as the reality sank in. The next morning I walked into the office not as the triumphant CEO but as a woman confronting her own reflection. Former colleagues still averted eyes in hallways, their discomfort a reminder of the power I'd claimed. My old boss resigned quietly the following week, unable to meet my gaze in the final exit interview. You made your point, he muttered. I nodded, but inside the awakening was complete. Revenge had tasted sweet, yet left an emptiness no title could fill. I called my parents, inviting them for a real conversation without conditions. My mother cried on the phone. My father grunted acceptance. Small steps, but honest ones. Months passed in quiet reflection. I scaled back operations, mentoring others instead of expanding ruthlessly. Rachel and I met for coffee after weeks apart, tentative, healing. I missed you, she said, hand reaching for mine across the table. We didn't rush back. The wounds needed time. But in that moment, holding her again, I understood the full price. The firing had been the spark, the rise the fire, but the real victory was choosing love over legacy. The company thrived under new values, and former doubters slowly adapted, some even reaching out with genuine respect. Societal prejudice hadn't vanished, but I'd carved space for others like me. Family dinners remained tense yet present. Standing on the balcony of our rebuilt life 1 year later, Rachel beside me watching the skyline, I realized the journey's truth. The girl fired for love had become the woman who redefined power. Not through domination, but through the courage to face every cost. Yet the question lingers in quiet moments. Was it right to let ambition nearly destroy the relationship that saved me? Or was every painful choice the only path to becoming the authentic leader and partner I was always meant to be?